Yes. From Austria, New Zealand, from the geodesic dome, please inaugurate this gathering with a few words of wisdom. You have them, I know.
Well, I'm very happy that you see them. I still have to find them, but yes, just expressing my gratefulness of this wonderful circle of people, being able to join this group and this very, for me, valuable, engaging way of introducing and talking about the philosophy, Krishna philosophy. And yeah, that's all I can say, really. I'm utterly grateful for every single one of the people in the group. And of course, of you, Maharaj, and your books, teachings. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Patrakji, for officially inaugurating our gathering at the table today with the hope of some of grace, bucket of abundance coming through each one of us. So thank you to each one of you for the gift of your presence. And greetings from Kali today. Kali with C. Also, we are also in the age of Kali. So I'm Kali in Kali inside the Kali, Kali, Colombia, which doesn't feel like Kali Yuga at all, or it feels like Kali Yuga in the sense of, as we know, Kali Yuga, I don't want to go off the tangent too much, but Kali Yuga in one sense is the worst age, and in one sense is the best age. That's how the Srimad Bhagavatam beautifully presents the idea of the Kali Yuga. The whole book, first 11 cantos, different topics, 12th canto Kali Yuga, first part of the 12th canto, the disaster of Kali Yuga, and then very interestingly starts to shift to extol the glories of Kali Yuga, like the supreme age, where all the sages are hoping to be born in and so on, and it ends up last verse at the feet of Mahaprabhu and the gift that he comes to bestow in Kali Yuga. So it gives this unique turn for us to appreciate Kali Yuga as Dhanya Kali, as some acharyas will say, fortunate age. So here in Kali, I'm in a place called Shamashram. So I'm in contact with Dhanya Kali, with the fortunate Kali, whether with C or with K, in a very healthy, mature, grounded association of Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. And yeah, the day is very quiet, like landing and accommodating to the local timing and culture and dynamics. And a few days ago, having started with a wonderful group of people, a series of lectures 2 days ago, talking about how to embrace pain and integrate suffering in our life as part of the journey, as crucial part of the journey. And yesterday we started a very similar series of lectures like the ones we had in New Zealand some months ago on the third verse of Shikshastakam. And as you may imagine, always something new is still coming. So it's an endless, generous cow of milk, giving endless streams of milk. Is a Kamadenu. Harikatha is a Kamadenu that always provides some new streams of revelation, right? So yeah, here all of us marveling at how much we can explore these quote unquote small verses, quote unquote short lines with endless content and the endless bottomless and depth and breadth. So yeah, looking forward to the next meeting, which will be in a few hours actually, where we will be trying to do something with the second line of Sikshastakam, so to say, of the third verse, right? Sarori Vasahishnuna, the implications of being more tolerant than a tree. So that's the meditation today. But also there are more than one meditation per day, and I'm welcome all the meditations that you want to throw me in by your questions and by your comments and inquiries and sincere spirit. So let's go to the raised hands and see where those hands are pointing us today as a as a collective, right? It's not that I will be the only one thrown in, but all of us hopefully enter the space, the sacred circle of Sangha, willing to swim together in whatever direction inspiration is calling us, and trying to have a real experience of navigating the journey as a collective together, no? Sankirtan, Parambijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtan. Sankirtan is a collective phenomenon. You cannot do Sankirtan by yourself. We need each other for that to happen. So, Karuneshwari, let's go to your raised digital hand.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, and Hare Krishna to everyone. I was going to return to this question that I sent to you a couple of weeks back. You remember, maybe. I'll read out I'll read it out for everyone anyway.
Okay.
So I've been listening to a lecture by Richard Rohr on the different levels of consciousness. And then I was Googling that, and I found a summary of of all of those levels. Now, it's not written by Richard Rohr himself, it's someone's interpretation or summing up, but I still thought it was interesting, so I sent it to you, and then you commented on it. So it's the third level of consciousness, which he calls mythic or tribal consciousness. And it was interesting because you've also written on that in Radical Personalism. You've mentioned this tribal consciousness. So in the summary, the person writes that this level of consciousness is innately dualistic, and this stage sees deep group conformity regardless of what might be true, which reminded me of, the kind of vein you were writing in Radical Personalism. And then it's a stage of dualism, and these dualisms include mentality of us and them, win and lose. And then the bit I really wanted to ask you about was they've included in this stage karma, and they've said you get what you deserve, and that this totally dominates grace. And then in your comment back to me, you said that idea of karma dominating grace is not our understanding. So I wanted to ask you to, well, first of all, I wanted to say why I thought they might have included karma there, and then to ask you why you think they might have included karma there, and then why it's not our understanding. And my thought of why they might have included it is because karma can just seem like a very black and white thing, that there's no flexibility in it. It's just you do something, you get a reaction, and that black and white situations are like less evolved than, the shades of gray, which allows for variety and flexibility and nuance and things like that. So I thought possibly that's why they put that in there. And that was the only understanding I could come up with for that. But wondering why you think it may have been included, and why, and how you can elaborate that that's not our understanding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, of course, this is one of many ways in which we can speak about levels of consciousness, and different authors and teachers from various traditions have come up with different terminologies for that, but somehow in general, they all point to similar patterns, no? Maybe we may speak in terms of Kanishta, Madhyam, Uttam, and in between that, subdivisions of that. Sometimes some Gaudiya Vaishnavas will speak in terms of Kanishta, 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 Madhyam, Kanishta, Uttam, right? Madhyam, Kanishta, Madhyam, 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 Uttam, Uttam, Kanishta, Uttam, Madhyam, Uttam, Uttam. And of course, there are so many in between those, but basically we are trying to make the point that the journey is nuanced, and there are stages and there are levels. It's not that everyone is on the same level, let's be honest. Of course, in principle, ontologically, everyone is a soul. Every soul has unlimited bright potential in Bhakti. I mean, nobody's denying that. But in terms of principle and in terms of potential, right? But in terms of actuality, everyone is in different places. No? Not to discriminate, not to promote any type of superiority, inferiority complexes, just to be realistic and to ascertain where we may be on the journey and act accordingly to the journey, right? So we want to be coherent with what the landscape of our journey demands, so to say. If I'm in a Kanishta Madhyam platform, just to mention something, I'm not expected to behave as an Uttam. That will be dysfunctional, right? If I'm beginning my Bhakti odyssey, I cannot just try to have my sadhana on the standard of Raghunath Das Goswami. That won't work. So there is a place, and that's why in our tradition we have Rupa Goswami mentioning 9 stages of bhakti, which is another way of illustrating the journey. You have Madhurya Kadambini of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur elaborating on those stages, and there's a need of constant elaboration on these things, and we may need to resort to different words and different terminologies, like the ones you are mentioning, like mythic consciousness or tribal consciousness, or sometimes some teachers have used the terms egocentric consciousness, and from egocentric you go to ethnocentric consciousness, which is similar to this, right? Egocentric is, okay, it's all about me, right? I having this realization, and only I have this realization, no? Or whatever. And ethnocentric is like my group has the real thing, right? My tribe, tribal thinking, my temple, my sampradaya, my whatever. No, it takes different forms. No, my guru and his followers, my followers. Who knows? Whatever. It takes so many forms. No? But of course, it still is characterized by some degree of dualism, right? Some degree. There are degrees of this. No, it's not that separateness just happens on one single shape. No, it happens in so it has so many calibers of it. No, so you can be extremely dualistic, mildly dualistic, and so on and so forth, right? So there are different stages and different. I'm making this point just for us to, to remind ourselves about the importance of having words to articulate the journey, right? An articulation of the journey is always required. The journey never ends in one way. So someone may say, okay, what's the need of then concerning about where we are on the journey if the journey never ends? Because, I mean, perfection is ever evolving. So in one sense, there's no point of final arrival, if you will. There's always some further unfolding. So we are always on a journey, even having arrived to Golok Vrindavan, right? Still love continues to expand, continues to grow. In that sense, the journey goes on. But at the same time, there is a need for language, I will argue, or a good articulation of the different landscapes of the journey, and to properly honor every chapter, not to go neurotic about, I'm not there yet, so to say. No? Oh, I'm still here. I haven't arrived at the so-called goal, so to say, or to compare ourselves with others, who is where. No, not from that place, but just to properly honor each chapter of the journey. What's expected from me, how I'm supposed to honor and behave. Today we were talking in the morning about, in our lecture here, the 3rd verse of Shikshastakam, and naturally one of the assistants to the lecture presented this idea that, of course, yes, it sounds so nice, but also he said, I have to find my own way of applying that line to where I am. No, like it's the same line, but everyone is in a different place. So what it means to be more humble than a blade of grass for me, and for you, and for him, and for her, it may be very different, because every single stage of the journey invites for a very unique type of humility, or for a unique type of surrender, or for a very unique type of tolerance, and so on and so forth. So again, knowing the stages of the journey, having a language to articulate that helps us to, okay, what's the particular type of consciousness I'm supposed to have in this journey, and how to express that, right? And again, to accept that also, to accept that is part of the journey, that, like we were talking about Trinada Pisunicena, no, humble than a blade of grass, and we were saying, well, in some stages that line will be natural. In some stages of the journey, it won't be probably natural to be humble. natural in the sense the most spontaneous thing that comes from us in a certain stage of the journey may not be humility. And it's part of the journey. It's not the ideal chapter to stay forever, but in some stages, as you read again, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's description of Anishtita Bhajana Kriya, unstable bhakti, he starts to mention the things that are unnatural for that stage, which is basically before Nishta, where most practitioners are. And he will say, not precisely more humble than a blade of grass, or not many glorious attributes, but some that may feel quite embarrassing. But he's putting them in, articulating them in a certain way, so we can naturalize that as part of the experience in that chapter of the journey. And we can be okay with that. We can normalize that. We can go through that, accept them in order to transcend them, so to say, right? So just to mention that as a preface to the actual question and answer to the question. So regarding what you've shared, Karuneshwari, okay, so Richard Rohr is mentioning that as part of this tribal level of consciousness or ethnocentric level of consciousness, there is this notion of karma as being above grace, so to say, if I understood correctly. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on that, which I share. Just to add a few more thoughts, if that helps. But basically, yeah, for me, it's not that he is, in my opinion, or maybe he has a different opinion and I may disagree with him. I mean, it's fine. That happens, just in case. This doesn't mean that I agree with 100% every single thing that Father Richard Rohr may say. And that doesn't mean that I don't love him, or I don't even consider him my mentor. I do. But it doesn't mean that we agree on everything either. And that happened, that came up in some of our conversations in person. So, and that's fine. Again, we still love each other. For me, that should be the standard, actually. You know, we can disagree on a few things and we can love each other despite disagreements, right? So karma, of course, karma exists, right? It's not that it's bad. It's not that it should be canceled. It's just a certain level of, certain operative level, right? So for me, what he's saying here is this karmic, this understanding of karma belonging to this tribal level of consciousness has more to do with overemphasizing karma to the point of losing sight of grace, basically, right? Like overemphasizing, you get what you deserve, so to say, an understanding of that, like that's basically the all in all. There's nothing else beyond that. You know, like eye for an eye, tooth for tooth type of thinking, which is not the all in all. No, Mahatma Gandhi once said in connection to that, he said, if we will only to apply eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, everyone in the world will be blind and everyone will be lacking all their teeth, basically, right? If we will take that law and just like reduce everything to that law, and there's no other higher department, nobody will end up winning. Right? So we are not saying there is no such a department. We are just saying that's not the ultimate department, and therefore that department is operating in service of a bigger agency, and that's the department of grace, mercy, love. So karma, that's a more sensitive understanding of karma. That's putting karma in context, in its place. So that understanding of karma does not, for me, belong to this tribal dualistic thinking. So what is put there is just to think of karma or action-reaction dynamics like the ultimate ethic of reality, so to say, which is not a very generous, hopeful one. Imagine if we relate to each other just based on that idea. Now, I will give you only what you deserve, what you have earned merit for. Nothing else, nothing less than that. Try to apply that in your mind, in you receiving that type of idea and you giving that to others. No? Like in you walking on the street, let's say, and you see a homeless person, and you're like, okay, so that's your karma. You're getting what you deserve. You just get close to that person in the street to tell him you're getting what you deserve. and you continue walking. No, no. You can see Manjuali's face at this moment. But that will be a very rigid adherence to this karma as if it were the all in all. We'll be treating each other based on that. And my point is, many times, and I've seen that, unfortunately, sometimes in our tradition, not always, of course, but sometimes I've seen that understanding of karma. Well, it's their karma. No? Karma gets reduced to, well, it's their karma. No? To whatever situation. Okay, what's their karma? So it's a very insensitive understanding. Again, that's overtly reductionistic. Like there's karma as the ultimate factor, and you lose sight of how karma is existing in the bigger picture of grace. So karma is in the service. The law of karma is in the service of grace. It's a law that basically, as I like to say, always trying to teach us responsibility. And love is the ultimate responsibility. So we need to be training our responsibility muscles. So when we are not voluntarily submitting to the divine, to love, willingly, openly, and behaving accordingly, then karma will work on us. But with that intention, with the intention that we are getting the intention of karma, it's a different thing. We may not get it, and we may think karma is chastisement, is punishment, or whatever. Someone else is to blame, and I enter into victim consciousness. But the actual intention of karma is training us in responsibility, so gradually we can process the responsibility that comes with a life of love. We may not be able to see that bigger picture yet, and we don't understand karma, but that's the context in which karma exists, right? It's not out of that context. So that will be a way more broad, generous, sensitive, and if you will, non-dual understanding of karma, and not so dualistic, but seeing karma in the as integrated into the grace equation. So when you can see grace, so to say, beyond karma, whenever you are faced with your own karma or someone else's karma, you can always resort to grace. No? Okay, you are not denying the karma part of the journey, but you know that there's a bigger consideration called grace and mercy, and you can both give that to others and open yourself to receive that yourself, right? And that's how you actually transcend karma, if you want to use that term, right? So we are not denying divine justice. That will be karma, basically. We are not denying that department. We are just putting it in context. So that's, for me, how we can deal with karma in a way that is healthy, that is not dualistic and rigid and non-compassionate and ultimately evasive, but in a way that is sensitive. No? And even if so many of the things that are happening to people around us, and including us, is our karma, okay, so let's help each other to really understand what we are going through, what's the ultimate intention of that, and how ultimately grace is the final factor. Because even when we are going through our karma, let's put it this way, even if I'm receiving a reaction to previous actions that I did, that I deserve, still grace is coming at the same time. It's not that whenever karma comes, there is no grace, right? I mean, grace is an underlying factor, omnipresent factor, because just to begin, Krishna is loving you unconditionally from day -0. No, not from day 1, from time without beginning. You are being loved by God. That's grace. No, it's not that you did something to earn that you deserve it. Probably not. You, as I like to say, love is too much to be deserved. So you cannot use the language of deserving when talking about grace, love, mercy. It doesn't compute. You need to use another word. The word deserving collapses. No? Or like Bhakti-rasa will say, the word deserving at that point is a disservice of the reality of love. You cannot deserve love. It's a contradiction of terms, right? So even in the concept of karma coming to our lives, it will help, it would heal, realizing how much grace still is being poured on us constantly. in the form to begin with of us being loved unconditionally by Krishna from time without a beginning. So yeah, basically that. But I appreciate the question, Karuneshwari, because sometimes we take for granted karma as a very, like, how to say, introductory topic, and we are here in Gaudiya Vaishnavism to just talk about Rasa Lila or whatever. And we may have a very kindergarten idea of karma yet. So if you don't get karma right, probably you are not getting grace and mercy right. And if you are not getting them right, probably you won't have a clue what the Rasa Lila is actually about. So this is how basic introductory topics are required as a building foundation for properly erecting a temple of divine love, a temple of rasa, a temple of prem, however you may like to call it, in a realistic way, right? So it's all interconnected. No, it's not that we're entering into the details of karma. It has nothing to do with raganuga bhakti, so to say, with the path of love, passionate love of the Brajavasis. Everything is properly tied if we have proper conception to accommodate that. Sambandha, avideya, prayojan, right? So I hope it helps. What do you say, Karuneshwari?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And like you said, it's just like ever kind of going ever deeper into the understanding of the philosophy that we might think we've understood for years, but it needs to keep going deeper so that we don't apply it in a superficial way.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would say for us, at least in particular, but I would say for any other genuine spiritual practitioner where grace is such an element, how to say, okay, karma is there. We may speak about that at times at some level, but in one sense, for us, the main consideration should be the principle of grace, right? So not being so concerned about, okay, did you deserve it or not? At the end of the day, we all need grace, right? We all need grace. No, we are all receiving probably lots of karma, or most people in the world, especially nowadays. But at the end of the day, we all need grace. That's where we will find shelter and hope and relief. So how active I am in providing grace to those people I'm relating to them, how much I'm giving myself to others beyond the mere normal expectation of what I'm supposed to give other people in terms of deserving, so to say, how much I'm going beyond the normal to try to give something else, to make a difference in other people's life. No? That's in one sense grace. No? That you are giving to other person something unexpected. No? It's like, I don't know, sometimes I like to do this and sometimes other people like to do that to me, that you just send a message to them and you tell them how much you love them and how special they are in your life. And they may be like, but Maharaj, it's not my birthday today. Right? Why you're telling me that today? I mean, it's a normal day. It's an ordinary day. I mean, every day is an opportunity to extend that type of thing, right? And when we receive that, it's humbling, it's moving, and it reminds us of the gift of grace, and it's a gift. It's a given gift. So we yeah. So it's important that we try to raise our standards to the principle of grace and mercy, not so much of karma and justice. Of course, justice is required on some level. I'm not against justice. But at the end of the day, what heals the whole thing is grace, not justice. Right? So you did something wrong, you are punished, so to say, by the law. But how you are ultimately redeemed from your mischief, so to say, there has to be some form of grace, some form of gift that goes beyond what you did, what you deserve. And that's what really moves you and converts you and transforms you when you are faced with something that very clearly you did nothing to deserve and it's being given to you in such a generous way. I mean, that's the real transformation for most, at least. No? So I think it's good that we on a daily basis, in a healthy way, ask ourselves, like, where am I in terms of receiving grace and also giving it? No? Because sometimes, as we always say, sometimes it's more difficult for us to receive than to give also. And sometimes to give grace still keeps us on some type of superiority complex position. It may be a form of feeding our ego also. Oh, I'm being given so much charity, I'm helping the poor, and I'm giving so much. But it can be done from a not humble place. No? So from which place to give, but also how to receive, because receiving grace is if it's grace, and if you're receiving it, that's humbling, that's shattering to the false structure of the false ego. And of course we need that. So we need to expose ourselves to the gift of grace on a daily basis. That's sadhana, basically. Sadhana, chanting japa, is you show up on a daily basis to expose yourself to the gift of grace. You can define sadhana, prayer, japa in that way. Daily exposure to the gift of grace. And allowing your ego structures to be shattered by an unmerited gift that is utterly transforming and humbling. That's basically what we are supposed to do on a daily basis. And not only in the moments of prayer, ideally, gradually, to extend that to how we relate to each other and how we experience the life, moments, relationships, sharing, everything, gradually, but to live more and more our life from that place of grace. At that point, karma disappeared in one sense. That's how you transcend karma. Basically, that's how, when karma is no longer in one sense a concern, because everything is operated from the bigger picture of grace. That's how you literally, experientially go beyond karma, embracing a higher, deeper department. And that starts today. It is not just a magical wand that comes one day and suddenly you are beyond all that. It's a daily work in progress, trying to enter more and more in that space and live life and understand life and filter reality through those lenses more than the other ones. So it's a discipline. It's not easy, but it's sadhana. It's part of the practice, part of the discipline, right? So yeah, sorry, some appendix that came to share to add to what I said. Thank you. Okay. Should we move on? I'm waiting for your blessings.
Thank you.
We need a few seconds to process, to digest. Silence is good for that as well. Yeah, it's a good digestive prompt. Okay, yeah. So let's continue with Rasangi.
As you have this way of turning everything around and turning it into love, acceptance, generosity of spirit. It's like amazing. Thank you. And I think Bhadra was actually next. Do you want to go first, Bhadra? She eliminated herself by.
We'll go to
it's quite fine.
We'll go to the two of you, so no problem.
Okay.
We have time.
So my question is, I've been pondering this thing about offenses. And I think thinking back to the hold that phenomenon had over me, and I'm probably not alone, but the thought of committing offense and then getting kind of booted out and eternally damned to hell was so big in the old days that
sounds scary, Rasangi.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm just thinking, so what it caused for me was to turn a blind eye to a lot of things that were not okay, in fear of committing offense, and like not paying attention and not seeing injustices even within my own community, environment, family even. Well, family maybe not so much, but the fear of offense being so strong that it prevents us from even being honest with ourselves about what we're seeing, what's going on around us. And that's, and there's that other thing that if we don't speak up for someone who's being abused or there's some inequity, we are complicit in that. So I just really would love you to talk a little bit about what's the real offense. Like, it's been so weaponized that I think some of us were like scared rabbits in our institutions, afraid to speak up for fear of offense and afraid of losing grace, right? But what is the real offense? I know you will have a good answer to this. Where is the offense part? What does offensive really mean? When we deal with persons and interactions and culture, societies, sanghas, right? Where is the offense? What's the offensive part of it? Thank you.
As you may recall, we spent some time in radical personalism talking about aparadha. There's one section called, if I'm not mistaken, radical remark, where basically we are mentioning this point, no? That the term aparadha, sometimes translated as offense, is weaponized to cancel critical thinking, is weaponized to promote fear, intimidation, to promote a culture of silence, basically, and where anything goes, anything can go but offense, right? But the paradox is that many things that go, and we don't say anything because of fear of offense, those things that are going are offensive in themselves, because there's lots of abuse, and as you say, and as the scriptures say, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, many verses, if I know that something is wrong and I just remain silent, I become complicit of that crime, if you want to use that word, or that act, that whatever. So there is a responsibility, right? We have a criteria, we have eyes, we have perception, we have sensibility, and if we perceive something, there is a place and a way to speak about it, not condemning anyone. Again, we are just finishing talking about grace, right? So we have to be careful that whenever we talked about this now, second question, aparadha, offense, we address all that in the context of what we just talked about, right? How to live a graceful, devotional life. Whether what is addressing offenses in others, in ourselves, how to do that with compassion, self-compassion, compassion in both directions. So yes, I agree. The idea of aparadha has been weaponized, has been traumatizing for many, like has become stigmatized to a point that it paralyzes thinking, it paralyzes action, it paralyzes feeling, in the name of just in case, so I don't commit offense. So I won't think, I won't feel, I won't do this. So so the price for being fully prevented for offense can end up being that I become an automaton. Right? I become close to a cyborg, and then in a few months AI is already replacing all of my faculties because I became so close to a robot that who can make the difference now? And that's not the idea, right? And yes, I see that Jugal Kishore is quoting in the chat and assuming the idea of sin, how it's generally interpreted in the Bible that we always talked about sometimes. That generally the word sin, we hear the word sin coming so many times in the Bible, which may be somehow a parallel to the idea of offense, at least how it's the moral weight that is put on that word. It's similar to how each tradition deals with that. Sin on one side, offense on the other. But the origin for the word sin, the original word, hamartia in Sanskrit, in Greek, hamartia is an archery term and means missing the mark. So missing the mark, that's it. You miss the mark, try again. The mark is still there. It's not that you are an evil, bad intended, ontologically failed human being with some DNA of whatever, heresy. You just miss the mark. It's not so easy to hit the mark and try again. You are going for a very high goal, so it's relatively understandable that you will miss the mark, right? We are going for divine love. We are going for integrity and authenticity and depth and love. I mean, such a high ideal, not a cheap one. So it makes sense that we'll miss the mark a few times. So that's sin, actually. That's the original word for sin. But sin now, for most people, for most Christians, they hear sin and they will start to feel the flames of hell close to them, so to say. It feels hotter now when I'm using that word. So sometimes aparadha has been taken to those extremes. Of course, I'm not saying any of that to downplay aparadha, to just say, just relax, guys. Don't care for aparadha. Just do whatever you want. It's okay. Krishna is merciful. He doesn't care. No, I'm not saying that. No. But we also are not saying go to the extreme of neurosis in the name of bhakti. No, neurosis and bhakti are not compatible, right? It's not that neurosis is favorable for bhakti. Just in case, sounds simple, but yeah. Practicing bhakti from a neurotic place is not anukul, it's not favorable. The beginning of Sharanagati is anukulyasya sankalpa pratikulyasya varjanam. Anukulyasya sankalpa. No? Sankalpa means intention. So develop the intention to accept whatever is favorable. Neurosis is not. Pratikulyasya varjanam. Develop the intention of rejecting all that is unfavorable. Neurosis is unfavorable. So don't practice bhakti from a neurotic place, from a place of intimidation, of extreme fear. So yeah, papa, as Padre is saying, for us, sin is papa in Sanskrit. Aparadha means something else. We are making a difference. But I'm saying both of them are related similarly in terms of moral wave. So aparadha, the word aparadha means against love, basically. Apa, aradhana, or radha. Aparadha. Radha, we know who Radha is. So aparadha means those acts that go against love. Our goal is love. We don't want to do those things that go against love. It's just like common sense, basically. So we will say that aparadha basically means to relate. I mean, we know the list of aparadhas in Nama aparadha. Of course, there are many aparadhas in many directions. And I know that sometimes that has been a little bit difficult for devotees to process. You go to the Seva aparadhas mentioning Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and you have like 50 something of them, and some of them seem a little bit like exotic, so to say, exotic. Some color of the cloth and some stuff like that. So I wouldn't put all of them on the same degree, but I will basically say that the spirit of the whole thing is, in bhakti, we are trying to align our life and our faculties to give pleasure to Krishna. So whenever we get to know the things that are give pleasure to Krishna, we try to embrace them, and we try to avoid that which opposes that. From that place, no? It doesn't mean that if I do aparadha, Krishna stops loving me unconditionally and sends me to hell, and I'll be rejected from the pearly gates of heaven forever. No, but I'm doing harm to myself, basically, right? I want to pursue love, and aparadha means to act in a non-loving way. That's basically aparadha. Of course, there are two. I will personally normalize aparadha, like the scriptures do. Scripture very naturally take for granted all of us commit many aparadhas per day. But again, not from a place of neurosis, not from a place of saying you are monsters, but from a place of normalizing, yes, still we act in non-loving ways at times. And that gets in the way of your practice. Just accept that. And you can always counteract that. You can always repent. You can always replace non-loving acts for loving acts. It's not that once you did aparadha, you are branded, not only labeled, but branded with fire forever, and you can never be the same person again. That's not like that. But sometimes I've seen devotees branding each other like that. He's an aparadhi. Oh, nobody wants to enter into that box, right? No. Aparadhi. Game over. Sorry, next lifetime. Like I remember. Similar, different but similar was funny. I was a few months ago in Jagannath Puri. I told some of you the story, I think. And I was going to enter one Hanuman temple nearby. Someone told me there's a Hanuman temple there. And someone said, but I think it's only for only Hindus are allowed. But someone else told me, no, everyone can enter. So I tried. I have both options. I'm not losing anything. I'm going to try, and someone comes from the temple in front of me and stops me like this. Only Hindus, next lifetime. In a charming way. No, it was not violent, but it was funny how he sent me to my next lifetime. So okay, next lifetime. No, only Hindus, next lifetime. No. So sometimes with the branding, aparadha branding, we do it in way more violent ways. No, aparadhi, next lifetime. No. And that's not like that. No. We are all committing aparadha. I mean, the Bhagavatam says, if you chant the name of Krishna and you are not pouring tears of ecstasy, that's because of aparadha. So, but we can take that line in a way that puts all of us into neurosis, like and shame and guilt, or just take the same verse and say, okay, here the Bhagavatam is normalizing the fact that's going on for most of us. And just for us to understand what gets in the way of practice. That's it. It's not just about pushing onto us fear, guilt, shame, neurosis. It's just there is something called aparadha. There is something we can act against love, and probably as conditioned soul we do that quite often, and that's part of the journey. Again, that's part of the journey. So better you learn to accept that. Of course, try to overcome that, but you can overcome something that you have not first accepted and even normalized for the chapter of the journey you're in. So, and again, you study all these journey depictions by Rupa Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur of the different stages of bhakti. And for example, Anartha Nivriti. Anartha Nivriti it's not just one stage before Bhajana Kriya or before Nishta. Anartha Nivriti goes all the way up to Bhava Bhakti. And when you hear the divisions of Anartha Nivriti, at least how Bhaktivinoda Thakur or also Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur do, one of those divisions is aparadha. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur will describe 4 types of anarthas, right? Duskritota, Sukritota, Bhaktiota, and aparadota. Aparadha is one anartha. Bhaktivinoda Thakur will make his own different classification, but in one of the categories, he makes 4 subdivisions to each one of the 4 categories. One of them is aparadha. So basically, they are saying anartha, one type of anartha is aparadha, and aparadha goes way up through Bhava Bhakti almost. In other words, normalize the fact that you may be engaged in aparadha almost up to the goal of your life, up to prayer. Again, not to normalize it of promoting that. Let's remain there, but just to know, okay, this is something that still will be there on some degree for some time. I'm trying to deal with that, but also don't make that as an extraordinary evil act that you are committing and therefore you are not fit for. I mean, mostly everyone is going through some variety of that on one level or another, until and unless you become a Premi Bhakta. Scriptures say, even in Bhava Bhakti, at least hypothetically speaking, you can fall even from Bhava Bhakti due to aparadha. So Scriptures say, even in Bhava Bhakti, aparadha can come. Just, again, to make the point, how almost omnipresent that will be. But again, aparadha means acting against love in one way or another. So, so yeah, I think we need to decompress, to unpack aparadha, and by unpacking aparadha, decompressing the pressure that sometimes is put on that term, in a way that it's making it like some extraordinary type of evil that shouldn't be happening, instead of, hey guys, let's normalize this reality, which will be with us for a long way in the journey. And let's try to work on that. But the best way you can do something about aparadha is by doing that from a relatively sane place of mind, right? Not from a neurotic mindset. Probably from a neurotic mindset, we just continue to make the whole thing worse. And I think we all have seen situations like that by overemphasizing aparadha from a very high, how do you say in English? Hyperbolic way, like there's nobody gets benefited from that. You won't see people flourishing and blossoming into pure love of Krishna very spontaneously, organically, and happily, and enthusiastically, maturely, sustainably. None of that happens. You just get a bunch of dysfunctional fellows, neurotic, paralyzed, angry, fearful, over-calculating. That's not bhakti. That's not what our teachers, our guardians want us to embrace. That makes Mahaprabhu's heart ache. Right? So let's be a little bit compassionate with Mahaprabhu's heart and with our own heart and with everyone else's heart. So whenever aparadha is coming, means okay, there is some unlovingness going on. Let's overcome the unlovingness with lovingness. Again, going back to the karma grace reply. Okay, there is some karma going on there, some karmic reaction. Let's bring grace to heal the whole thing. Okay, there is aparadha. There is something that goes against love here. What to do? Let's invoke love. What can counteract unlovingness? You know the answer to that. No, unlovingness won't be counteracted by further unlovingness. By labeling people, branding people even further, pushing them down, making them more neurotic. That just keeps the snowball of aparadha bigger and bigger, rolling, and that can happen also. We've done pretty good at that. Pretty bad actually. So yeah. That's what I will say basically. And again, for me, this is more difficult than just merely traumatizing everyone around me in the name of aparadha. That's very easy to do. That's very superficial, very cheap. But to really take a stance of grace and mercy and lovingness and compassion and dealing with that with ourselves and with others, that's more demanding, more challenging. That requires a bigger heart, right? We need to expand our heart to accommodate the things. That's basically our dharma. Our dharma is to expand our heart to accommodate those things that we cannot accommodate yet. There are so many things that still are falling out of our heart vessel because our heart vessel is too small, so to say. So we need to expand the heart vessel so we can embrace those things, accommodate, find a place for them. In our heart, in reality, everything has a place, but we need to be big enough in our heart, in our hosting capacity to make a place for that. Because again, if not someone does aparadha and we just criticize, condemn them, we start being the losers because we are doing aparadha all day also. So if someone does aparadha and I relate to that from a toxic place, I mean, I'm the first loser because I'm doing aparadha. So I'm just perpetrating the same reaction toward. I don't want when I do aparadha to be branded forever or who knows what. So yeah, we need lots of healing. Healing. Let's get accustomed to use the word healing more than use the word offense. Let's put the word offense to rest for some time. Not because it's not happening, but let's bring the word that will heal all that stuff, right? So let's concentrate on the positive way to deal with that and not just overemphasizing the negative, right? You were saying something, sorry.
I think I still see myself detoxing from that thinking. So I appreciate
we are all, welcome to the rehab center.
I appreciate your willingness to unpack it. And then we have to reconstruct it, our thinking in a different way.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that's why, quoting Father Richard, I really agree on this one with him. He will say that we are addicted to so many things. We are talking about rehab center. We can bring AA, Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program. And you say, I'm not addicted. I'm not addicted. I shouldn't go there. And Father Richard will say, we are all addicted. And the thing we are all addicted the most is to our thinking, to our thinking processes. We are addicted to thinking ways that are toxic, like a drug, are killing us. And we should learn to detox, as you say, detox ourselves from that. So yeah, technically speaking, an ashram or a sangha doesn't need to be a building. A sangha is a form of rehab center. You know, it's like, again, you enter into, I mentioned, I think, that in Radical Personalism, you enter into a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous and you introduce yourself as an addict, right? You're not coming here like, I'm such and such glorious personality with this list of accolades and title. I'm an addict. I'm coming here for rehab. So somehow you enter into a sangha, and we should enter from the same place also. We are all trying to recover from toxic patterns. Maybe we are following the 4 regulative principles, no intoxication, all that stuff, but we are still so intoxicated with prejudice and presuppositions and patterns of thinking that are very, very, very mad, crazy. So we need to get detox from that, deconstruct, unlearn. That's big part of the learning is unlearning. So that's great. That's great. No problem. It's painful. I know it's painful because it's acknowledging that, oh my gosh, what I've been doing or learning or thinking for the last who knows how many years was not the actual thing, right? But it doesn't mean that didn't serve any purpose during that time, right? So we shouldn't be resentful and throw, how to say, the baby out with the bathwater. So we should appreciate whatever thinking we had, but now realize, okay, I'm ready for an upgrade on that. And for the upgrade, and I also I need an unlearn. No, there is some corresponding unlearning that goes with the upgrading. Because if I'm not willing to let go, to release certain way of thinking, I cannot upgrade to the next version of myself. So I need to allow that to disappear in one way, right? So, and as we say, it feels like death, right? So it's about dying. It's about being born again. In Sanskrit, it's one of the words for immortality is amrita, right? Amrita, immortal. But the word amrita includes the word mrita, which is death. So if you want immortality, you have to die a few times. It's included in the package, in the very word. You want amrita, you have to go through mrita. So die to live in Hegel words. Die to live, as Srila Siddha Maharaj would like to quote over and over again. Over and over again. At one point, I was like, why is Srila Siddha Maharaj repeating die to live so many times? If there is one thing he will repeat, I mean, many, is that line. But because we need to die so many times, to live so many times, there is no end, to be born again. Be born again Gaudiyas. We have born again Christians, born again Gaudiyas. 108 times born again per day. So yeah, you are not alone, Rasang, in that one. Don't forget about that part also, right? Don't isolate yourself thinking I'm the only one going through this, because that makes the whole process way more excruciating. So we are going through all of that together, right? On one way or another, we are all needing to unlearn something. If you think you don't, then you do. So we all need to. What do I need to learn today corresponds also with what do I need to unlearn today. No, I cannot learn something new today if I do not unlearn something old today. It goes hand by hand. You cannot just keep learning new stuff without unlearning anything. That's not how learning happens, right? So Srila Siddha Maharaj will use that idea. To make progress means to embrace a new conception and let go of an inferior conception. He will always mention the two simultaneously. Embrace a higher conception, release a lower conception. That's how progress can be conceived. It's not just embracing higher conception, yes, but releasing lower conceptions as well. And that's unlearning, that's letting go, that's dying, to be born, to learn, to grow. So yeah. Thank you. Yes. So we have two more hands. Again, Bhadra is at the end of the queue. You're very much of this, the last will be the first. How do you say this famous? Yeah, I think there's something with the microphone or something. So we have time for both. So let's go to Jugal Kishore and then we'll go to Bhadra. No
That's
problem.
fine. I don't mind. I really don't mind if there's no time for me. That's fine.
Okay, let's see. No problem. Let's try. Let's see where Jugal Kishore's contributions take us. From Cusco, Peru? Or not yet Cusco? Lima. I can't hear you.
Sí, en Cusco.
Okay. Some words in Spanish to share with us?
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
That's about all I can say.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes. It's not buenos días.
Now, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, hi everybody. I guess something that was on my mind the last 2 days, yesterday or 2 days ago, my luggage didn't come. So I have the clothes on my back.
Welcome to the class.
And some personal items in my book bag, and that's about it. So this idea of non-attachment was very much like prevalent in my mind. Actually, it was today when I was doing some hiking alone that it felt okay. It felt safe to not have excess things. And we were talking in the chat, in the Parikram chat, about vairagya or renunciation. And I just wonder, how do we move closer to this attitude of vairagya while also maintaining our sense of safety and security? So many people are afraid. They don't have their basic needs met. And part of me wants to run towards renunciation. And then at the same time, little challenges, little tests, and it's like, no, I'm not quite there. Let's go like slowly. So Swami, maybe you could say some words about this idea of vairagya, how this is a path that Gora Hari paves for us, and how much are we supposed to follow? Hare Krishna.
Thank you. It's interesting you ended mentioning a path that Gora Hari is paving for us, and there's one famous verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita which describes that one attribute that characterizes the associates of Sri Chaitanya is their vairagya. So that's an interesting point. And it doesn't mean that all of them are sannyasis or brahmacharis, because if you pay attention to who are his associates, there are some sannyasis and brahmacharis, but they are minority. But they are all characterized by vairagya. And again, as we always say, vairagya is translated as renunciation, but the etymology of the word indicates vairagya or raga. Raga means attachment. Vai means a very special type of. So vairagya translates as detachment, but means a very special type of attachment that brings detachment as a byproduct, right? So again, I know I say this many times, but I need to say them again for me to begin with. So we, in our school at least, there are different schools. Some other schools like Advaita Vedanta will promote outright vairagya and detachment as a sadhana. For us, vairagya is not a sadhana. It's not a limb of bhakti. Vairagya is a byproduct of bhakti. So our practice is to get attached to love, attached to the Vaishnavas, attached to serve everyone, attached to see the potential, the bright potential in everyone, attached in a good sense of the term, in a way that is nourishing who we are, to confirming our identities. Not that we generally build up a sense of identity based on attachments, but on attachments that are not healthy, that are not bhakti, that are not loving. But our real sense of identity can also be built on a sense of attachment to God, attachment to love, attachment to serve. That's who we want to be, who we are ultimately. So there's nothing against attachment, and there's nothing against detachment. The point is to what I get attached to and to what I get detached from. So again, as we were talking about aparadha, we want to be detached from those things we go against love. That's it. Right? And what gets in the way of my love journey, of course, for each person, it will be different, no? Because of course, sometimes we can do a little bit of hoarding, micro hoarding, so to say, like accumulating more than what we actually need. And the accumulation, again, is coming from a place of, I need to have more things to fill in my existential void, right? I have a how to say, I have a weak sense of identity, so I need to strengthen my sense of identity with a few things, with a few extra things, so I feel myself more. That's when it's a problem, no? Because the problem there is not the things. The problem is that you are not building a strong sense of identity for who you actually are. So you are starting to depend on things to add on to your self-esteem, so to say, self-value, and that's a process that is deemed to failure, because at one point all those things will abandon you. No? Your car, your cloth, your house, your money, I mean, they have been never yours to begin with. Right? So as we know, we develop a sense of I based on a sense of me and mine, my and mine, right? I, me, mine. Famous song from the Beatles, composed by George Harrison. All through the day, I, me, mine, I, me, mine, I, me, mine. He's singing. All through the day, I'm wondering, just thinking in terms of I, me, mine, I, me. My sense of I depends on what I think it's mine. But as we like to say, you own nothing, but you belong to everything. That's the actual formula. You own nothing. Nothing belongs to you, but you belong to everything. On that foundation, we should build our identity. I mean, of course, there are degrees of realization of this. And we cannot push ourselves too much beyond our present degree of realization, right? So I cannot force myself to be more renounced and more detached. And I'm okay with a loincloth because my sense of identity is not depending on anything else. If you don't have that insight, it's not natural. It's imitation. It's not sustainable. So we are Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas, worshippers of Vishnu. Vishnu, the deity of sustainability, right? Brahma creates, Shiva destroys, Vishnu maintains. So we should represent our deity properly and do whatever we do in a sustainable way. But yeah, there is always something, again, going back to progress, meaning embracing something higher, releasing something lower. If we are honest, there are so many things that we could, how to say, survive without, but still are there for one reason or another, like the hoarding. No? Hoarding, you have boxes and magazines and stuff that you think you will never open that again. You will never need that ever. Anyone will need that. Burn half of your house, please. And you're like, no, but who knows, just in case, right? Or I don't know why, but it gives me security to be filled and surrounded by stuff. It strengthens my ego, my identity. Many times it's because of that. I need all that piles of stuff to fill in all my lackings and my voids internally. So that's why, again, when you progress in bhakti, which means you progress in your self-esteem also, therefore you become more and more detached, because you don't need things to fill in your existential void. You are filling the existential void with actual inner stuff. So you can really live a life of detachment and that's why Rupa Goswami, the very first thing I thought when you were asking the question, Jugal, sure, was the second verse of Upadeshamrita, where Rupa Goswami speaks about 6 things that get in the way of our bhakti. And he begins with Atyahara. Atyahara prayasascha. He mentions 6 things that are not favorable. The first one is Atyahara, which means to overaccumulate. And overaccumulate is different in each case, right? But for some person, it's a necessary, healthy amount of stuff to have a balanced psychology and practice bhakti on the basis of that. For another person, that will be hoarding. That's too much, right? So one has to find and sometimes it's good to be in situations like the one you are going through now, because I talk not from as you know, I'm not talking in a cruel way like a sannyasi. Oh, you lost your leg. It's so nice that happened. That happened to me a few months ago. So I'm talking from that place. As a sannyasi, I travel the whole world with small luggage. And sometimes I may unconsciously think, oh, I'm such a detached guy. Every time I arrive at some place, people think, that's your only luggage, Maharaj? How do you do? I'm probably in a very conscious play. I'm like, thank you. And then I lost that luggage also. Right? The Krishna say, okay, let's see now who is a sannyasi now. So it was uncomfortable in the beginning, to be honest. It was like, oh my gosh, I have no cloth, basically, literally, because the thing that I have in my luggage is cloth, and it's always this one. I lost all that. I just have the one that I was using, but I could just use the same cloth for a week without washing it. It would be too much detachment. So yeah, I had to, of course, they gave me other cloths, and I said to wear any cloth they would give me, and that's okay. But yeah, in the beginning, it was strange to suddenly be deprived of the only thing you thought was your main possession. Even that, take it. I was like, whoa. But very quickly, by Krishna's grace, not my merit, I was okay with that. And I came to that realization, like, okay, I can survive without that luggage also. There are so many things that actually we think we need. And now I'm without luggage. I have no cloth, but I'm being provided by the environment. No? Oh, do you need some cloth? So for me, that was the realization. Okay, in one sense, Krishna took all that, and with one hand, he took all that, let's put it that way. And with the other hand, he provided all that from another place. And the end result of that experience is me trusting more. Of course, Krishna is providing, sustaining, maintaining, nourishing. And whenever something is lost, something is being provided. And that same time in a deeper way. So let's not lose sight of that, right? So that's the basic spirit of detachment, right? It's not so much about getting detached, because that can be an ego thing. I'm so detached, I just use two cloths or whatever. It's just about entering to this place of Gopritve Varanam. That's the essence of Sharanagati. Krishna is maintaining me. And I believe that. I'm not saying I believe that fully. I want to enter that space. But I should believe that Krishna is maintaining me. So that's actual detachment. No? To get detached from the idea that I'm an absolutely independent doer, attainer, all that stuff, possessor, all the things belong to me, that I have an identity based on the things that belong to me. That has to be dismantled gradually, but dismantled. So yeah, how to configure the sense of identity that does not depend on things being mine, on nothing being mine. How my identity can be built on the fact that I belong. Again, not that things have to belong to me, people have to belong to me, but that I can belong to everything, which, by the way, I already do. It's not that it's something that is not happening and needs to happen. It's already happening. I'm just looking into some other direction. So Rupa Goswami says atyahara prayasas. Interestingly, he makes that sequence. Atyahara means over accumulating, and prayasas means to make unnecessary effort. Like implying when you over accumulate, that takes you to make an extra effort to keep all that extra stuff that you have, so to say. And all that takes energy, takes time in the journey, gets in the way somehow. So how can I travel my journey as light as possible in a way that is healthy? Again, here we are not talking again, try to imitate Raghunath Das Goswami, Sukadev Goswami. I mean, Sukadev Goswami didn't even have a coping. Sometimes this is in our tradition. Okay, Raghunath Das Goswami, they have a coping. Oh, that's too much for me. Then you hear Sukadev Goswami, he was not even attached to a coping. He just went naked. A coping, that's too much of a luggage for me. Sorry. Just fully situated in his identity. That's the actual point. He's fully situated. He doesn't need anything to add onto who he is. I don't need to put certain cloth to be more of who I am. I don't need to have a fancy this or that to be more of who I am, to feel more of who I am. I'm so much in contact with who I am. What other opulence can be more than that? What other reach can be more than that? What other wealth? What other all this stuff? So in one sense, he became extremely detached because again he contacted the ultimate source of rich wealth and fortune. So he's more millionaire than all the multi-billionaires of the planet, but he's going around naked in the world. So that's how it operates, right? So, but yeah, we have to pay attention. No? We have to pay attention to. I think it's a healthy exercise to put ourselves to test in different ways to not take for granted that I need all the things I think I need. And to let go a few of that stuff so I can increase my sense of neediness or necessity in the good sense for Krishna, right? Okay, I think I depend on my luggage. Okay, you have this, you don't have that luggage anymore. What now? So you don't depend on that. Okay, so you depend on what? How do I feel that sentence now? I cannot put luggage anymore because it's not there. So who will feel that part? Right? And so on and so forth, right? So yeah. So many things we as we were saying before, we get addicted. We are talking about luggage now. A few moments ago, we were talking about thoughts. Thinking. We are addicted to thinking. We are addicted to cloth. I mean, sometimes we are addicted to cloth. That's one of the main instructions that Mahaprabhu gave to Raghunath Das Goswami when he asked him, give me a personal instruction. Gramya katana sunibe gramya vartanaka. First he said, don't listen gossip, don't speak gossip. But then he said, don't dress very nicely, don't eat very fancifully, don't go beyond the line. Of course, Raghunath Das Goswami, right? Don't dress fancifully. He's talking to us, right? Ultimately. So he's not saying you have to just wear a coping. He's just saying, don't take for granted that the way you dress, the way you eat, the way you do anything, you actually need all that. Maybe you may be able to let go a little bit of that, nothing in extreme measurements. So you let go of that so you can embrace more of the other thing, more of the real thing. How much your cloth may be getting in your way of bhakti. It can happen. Why not? Or a classical example now, social media. No? Try to live without social media for a day and realize that still you can survive. Because sometimes we take for granted, no, it's not possible. That cannot happen. Well, there's no social media in Golok, so better you get accustomed to that. So sometimes we need to put ourselves, to expose ourselves to some dynamics where we can realize, oh, I can still survive without this. And then after a few moments, you realize not only I can still survive, it feels better many times. It feels lighter. And I'm talking about social media, about talking about anything that may be our Achilles heel. So I think those are healthy exercises, not to become stagnant, complacent, take things for granted, and rationalize in our own mind, no, I need all the things always. But at one point, all those things won't be there for you. So better you start to let go of them gradually in a sustainable way, because if not, if at a sudden point all that's taken away from you and you are totally convinced I need them, that will be a problem. So better do not wait for dying to letting go of that, but start to die now gradually and letting go of some of those things is a form of dying, right? So when official death comes, so to say, leaving your body comes, you're ready to go. It's like, yeah, no problem. Car remains here, house remains there, my closet remains there, my social media accounts remain there. Let's go. Let's move on. Gradually we have to prepare ourselves for that. It's not joke, let's be honest. Of course, if we don't make it fully, there's another chance and another chance, we know that, but also we want to practice with some, to live our lives with some integrity and dignity, right? So I don't know, that's what came today. I hope that offers you some solace in the midst of your recent loss. And again,
Yes.
every time there is some loss, there is some gift simultaneously coming. You know? One door closed, so many doors opening. So yeah, I mean, hopefully the luggage returns, if it returns. Mine returned, but I didn't know if it will return. And at the point it returned, I was already accustomed that it wouldn't return. So it was complex. It was like, oh, this came back. What to do with this? Of course, you get accustomed to that after a few days. So it's the same that, I don't know, when I do fasting from social media, sometimes the whole month of Kartik, after the first 5 days is hell on earth. And after that is heaven. And then hell comes when I have to go back to that, all that stuff, so to say. So, no? It's interesting to know how to navigate all that, right?
The hardest part,
Yes.
Swami, the hardest part was being with people who were wanting to shop so much. Souvenirs, buy this, buy this, buy this. And I'm like, okay, I'm following you.
You need to shop. You need to go and buy some clothes.
Oh, I bought my coupons. But other than that, that was the hard part, because like I'm not in a position to do that. So this morning I said to my friend who I followed here to help co-lead this yoga retreat, was I need to take today to myself. And now being alone for the day and doing some hiking, so many thoughts came, so much peace came. And you know, the Sri Ishupanishad mantra, that first, I think it's the first verse, or maybe second, about accepting only what you need, knowing well to whom it all belongs. That hit me. I was like, okay, it's fine.
Yeah, formula for peace. Yeah. And I would think about the notion of fasting also, no? Like it's a voluntary deprivation, you say? Not deprivation, but privation, or of something that is usually, okay, I'm eating, it's normal, I need to eat. But you know you can fast for some time, still you will survive. It will be uncomfortable, but if you do it properly, it will take you somewhere to some other place internally also. And in every tradition, fasting is there. And this type of things we were talking about beyond the fasting of food is our forms of fasting, right? A form of being deprived, sometimes by force of circumstance, but it's good that sometimes we how to say, have the initiative to experience that deprivation of some level and see what comes, see where I am, and be open to receiving some gifts from that. So fasting for me is a good example. It's not something that we will, yes, fasting. It's uncomfortable for many, but if properly engaged with, you understand it's okay. If seeing myself as continuing, I can survive this, and so many things come as a gift. So we can be fasting from, again, food, social media, too much clothes, or too many thoughts, no? Too many words, silence, no? Fasting from words, no? Prayer, fasting from thoughts, and so on. Retreats, fasting from social media, fasting from this day now. Forms of voluntary detachment or deprivation that takes us to another place and allows us to see ourselves from a different place, because many times we become convinced I am this, and you have a long list of labels, right? And when you took yourself to those liminal spaces, by force of circumstance, you are depriving yourself of many of those designations that you attach to yourself on a daily basis. So what remains of me in those circumstances? And the real self actually emerges if we are entering those spaces with sincerity. So those are powerful moments. I mean, for me, that's, for example, tomorrow is Ekadashi, at least here. For me, that's the meaning of Ekadashi. Ekadashi is not no pizza today. No. Ekadashi means, okay, every 2 weeks, if not more, take one day every 2 weeks. Like, I don't know, Jews will have Shabbat or other traditions, certain fasting in Lent or different seasons. Take one day every 2 weeks to live your day differently, stop doing what you usually do, take distance from all those things that define who you are on a daily basis, and see what remains of you in that liminal space of fasting from food, but fasting from other stuff as well. But feasting on so many other things, as Srila Prabhupada will say. Because it's not about fasting, it's about feasting. But the feasting, it doesn't mean, okay, let's eat more than ever. That's the feasting. Feast internally. So, yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Swami.
So, where is Padra? Oh, there's Padra. Badra.
I'm here, Maharaj, but I'm not expecting to ask a question and have you answer now at this stage, and that's perfectly fine. Everything that everyone says and all the answers are so enriching. I don't feel any loss not asking my question. But one thing I'd like to say,
yes,
just quickly,
yes,
about furthering on, continuing from what you have just been saying, I'd just like to talk about how I, all my life, have had a vicious sweet tooth. It started in my childhood. My mother used to give, she was loving, but she had no idea about health. And she used to make chocolate cake every day or very often. And I think my addiction to sweets started then. And in my teenage age, a whole big bar of chocolate a day. And then coming into the ISKCON life, the Hare Krishna world, where there was halava and there was gulab jamuns and rasgullas and all these sorts of things. It was just, I used to, make meals of them. Anyway, this went on for many years, and everybody knew, oh, Bhadra, here's Bhadra, load a plate up with sweets. So about 25 years ago, when I was 50, I decided I'm going to, I could see this Jiva Vegam that was not going to be impact well on my health if I didn't do something to control it. So I decided I'm not buying any more chocolate or chocolate biscuits or any sweets, and I won't eat any sweets that aren't offered to the deities. So that was a rule I set for myself about 25 years ago, when I first started on the mission to control my sweet tooth. And I've largely followed that. And for the last 3 or 4 years, for the month of Kartik, I've completely boycotted sweets, except on Govardhan Puja. But other than that, completely done without sweets. The first time I did it, it was difficult. It was, my mind had difficulty not having any sweet. But the second year it was easier, the third year was easier, and the year just gone, last Kartik, it was quite easy. But then now I've decided, due to a health condition, which is not serious, but could be serious if I don't look after myself at my age, I decided I'm going off sweets entirely. And except for festival and feast days, I'll honor the prasadam, of course. But in my diet at home, I have been off sweets for the whole of the year so far, which is what, coming in the third month. And it's wonderful to find, because it's a mental thing, and I'm finding that, just like you were saying a few minutes ago, I just don't need it. I don't need that sweet. I thought I needed it all those years. It was an addiction, but I'm finding I don't need it, and it's very freeing. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you. Thank you. And of course, again, we can replace chocolate or sweet with whatever is our Achilles heel, and gradually get to that beautiful point you shared that, okay, I don't need this actually. No. So then the question is, okay, what's the thing that I really need? At the end of the day, it's all about that question. What's the real necessity? Prayojan in Sanskrit means prayojan. Prem prayojan. Prayojan means the goal, the attainment, but prayojan means necessity. And so prem, divine love, is the ultimate goal, but also is the real necessity. So a gradual process, again, not for anyone to feel pressured on anything or compare and develop any guilt here. Oh, I'm still eating sweets or stuff, whatever it may be each case, but just to encourage each other to gradually get closer and closer to the real necessity. So thank you. Thank you for much for that, Badra. And yeah, I think we will put our discussion to rest here, because I have another discussion in 1 hour or so here with the local devotees. So we will conclude here the official discussion.